This is Aware, powered by Intersoft Associates. Aware is your connection to exploring the systems and software that power businesses like yours with expert insight, experience, and advice.
Welcome back to Aware. I am Chris Mintliff. As always, I'm joined by Hai Goldstoff and Abe Unger from Intersoft Associates. And we've been talking a lot lately about big data. We talked about what makes for a great database consultant. I thought today would be kind of interesting for our listeners to dive in a little bit behind the scenes on what some of your experiences have been around data integrations, how they have been successful, maybe where there have been some unique challenges, where things were a surprising or unexpected impact, anything like that. So, team, I think I'll start with you, Abe. When I ask what's the most interesting integration that you can kind of think of in modern memory, what comes to mind for you?
Well, sure. Well, they're all interesting, but the one that comes to top of mind is one I remember doing for Pearson Education a number of years ago, where there was a requirement that when they were shipping books to the public schools, in order for them to get paid, they had to actually give proof of delivery, a signed proof of delivery for every one of those shipments. So someone in New York City would sign the shipment came from, let's say, UPS or FedEx or whatever it may be. And Pearson had to prove that they got the books in order for them to get paid. And then you can imagine the time-intensive process that would be is going and looking these up online, getting the signatures, putting that together into a document, and then sending it out to the public schools to get paid. And it took hours and hours and hours of time, days before they put this together, weeks before payments came through. And it was a very, very involved, very, very intense process. Well, when they spoke to us, we looked into it, and lo and behold, there are APIs out there where you can actually pull this information directly. So using an input spreadsheet that came from New York City with all this information, we loaded that info in, went out to the websites, went out to the APIs, whether it's UPS, FedEx, some other shipping carriers as well, got this information down, pulled down the signatures, put together an entire document, prepared it all, big PDF, a bunch of digital files that they required as well. Put that on, back then it was either a disk or a USB drive. Now it's an FTP. Send it over to New York City. And within hours of pulling this information, we now had documents, everything that they needed so that invoices can go out, payments can come in. So time saver in terms of just man hours, all of that man hour in terms of money that they had to spend on that. And just the time frame to getting paid tremendously reduced by doing this entire process. And that all involved integrating their invoice data that they had in their system to an API available, publicly API available at UPS or FedEx, to pull that information together and get it all done. And that was a wonderful project. It was great to work on, great people to integrate with, and huge return on investment almost immediately.
Huge.
What they did, just to underscore that a bit more, one of the big metrics that many companies use are day sales outstanding, and for the New York City Department of Education, I think their DOS went down by over 30 days. I mean, huge. It improved cash flow dramatically. The additional problem that they had was after a period of time, I don't know if it's 6 months or 12 months, this information that we gathered was no longer available on the FedEx, UPS, and the various websites. It went away. So we're able to leverage this data not only for New York City Department of Education, but anybody else who's arrears in payment. We had the data, and then that whole process was automated as well to be able to send them the information that you received the goods, and to improve that process so someone doesn't have to go and research it. And if someone is more than a year past due, that information is no longer available. So we created this whole data warehouse, as part of this, and so they were. Cascading benefits beyond just this. So
this is a great sort of illustration example of so much of this database conversation we've been having, because one, I imagine when they came to you, they knew they had some deep inefficiencies, but they didn't know how we could fix it. There's just got to be some way we can do it. And then two, they had some outcome in mind, probably were surprised and delighted with it. But you're describing, and because we had all this data, we were able to do more. We were able to, understand things better. When they came to you and said, look, here's our issue, and you guys worked through it, did you have a sense for how, Abe, you talked about how long it was taking to do all these different things, but it could be a matter of months before bills were paid. It could be a matter of 6 or 7 people being involved. It sounds just like a big spaghetti mess of responsibilities.
Sure. And knowing that it was coming, they dreaded it. They knew what it was. They knew the manual effort, the amount of people they would have to bring on board to do that. A couple attempts to go in there and pull this information. Whatever was involved in putting it together and matching it and double checking it and checking it against the invoices, the entire process was a bit of a nightmare. So forgetting about all of the other benefits that we got out of this, but those people who were doing this work were free to do whatever it was that they needed to during the day and not have to be bothered with this. Double checking, triple checking, sending data back. There were mistakes that would have to come back and forth because it was all manual. And the public school said, oh, you're missing this invoice, you're missing that invoice, and back and forth. And just the automation of it just helped them tremendously. And those were the kind of benefits that, it's one thing to actually get the payments. It's the other to be able to use these resources for much more important tasks than this manual work.
And how?
But also, let me just interrupt. But also, another part of that, to make the payment easier by the people at the Department of Education. If you're doing this manually, different people, might be tasked with different parts of the, different parts of the business. However, they might want to segregate it at Pearson. There's no uniformity in what they send to the people in the payables at the Department of Education. So this also maintains discipline. Every report is going to look the same. If you want to know where to find something, it's going to be in the same place everywhere. So if someone else gets involved, it's easy to understand. We're able to make it easy because there's no additional work in doing that. If you're doing it manually and are working late to get it done, you're going to take shortcuts. We didn't have to. So we wanted to make it easier for them to get paid, give them the information they need, but also make it a lot easier for them to, for them to pay Pearson. So that's the other part of what the automation did.
Do you have a sense for how long this project took you guys? Was this a weeks long? Was this a months long endeavor? How long did it take you to get to a place where now they can realize some of these new possibilities?
Somewhere in between weeks and months. It was more than a couple of weeks. Just calling all of those APIs, getting the data and getting it into the format they wanted. But it was less than months worth of work in terms of development effort. Duration-wise, things take a little longer when you're dealing with these kinds of companies and getting all the data together. But the benefits were, much less than actual months of actual effort time to do so.
And also discovery is a huge part of it, is understanding what needs to be done and doing the consulting in the beginning of it. Is what do we need to do? What is the scope of the problem? What is the scope of the solution? How do we, do the solution, and then going into programming it. So the first part is very collaborative with Pearson and their other partners. Again, FedEx and whatever. And then, then doing it is fairly straightforward. So
how does that consult?
The other thing was, it was also like a phased approach in this manner. We did the UPS, we did the FedEx, those were the big ones. Then there were a couple of other shipping companies that were also used in the process. Once that architecture was built, we could use other APIs from the other companies and plug that in as well. So some of those were a little bit more manual, a little bit different, a little bit more complicated than UPS and FedEx, but we were able to use that architecture to get that information as well. So as a second phase, we were able to move on to other shipping providers to get the same information, which also turned out to be beneficial in other areas of the business as well, not just for New York City or Department of Education.
IsAware is powered by Intersoft Associates, your software consultancy that will help you to maximize revenues, reduce costs, and streamline work processes with the right IT solutions. Intersoft Associates delivers strategic consulting and custom software development, together with support and enhancement to help modernize and manage the software that helps your business run. Visit us at IntersoftAssociates.com.
Did you discover new opportunities then along the way? You talked about phase 2. Was that built in, or was that you've mentioned some of the things that as a result of we were able to do this. I'm wondering how that consulting sort of continues as the project progresses. You start out with an end in mind, or with a scope, a system that you know you want to develop, and then as these opportunities or as these objectives are achieved, do you see new potential and possibilities, and how does your expertise connect to those?
Well, you see them in all phases of the project. So certainly, as you start doing a discovery, there are other oh yeahs that the users, through the collaboration, you find out new things, and then you don't want to make the project real long. Let's get a win. Let's do what we're focused on. We put things in what we call a parking lot. For a phase 2, this is not immediate need. There's not a tremendous benefit right now, and we don't want to delay, the core initiative. So, we'll put that, and then we'll say, this is a phase 2, or for a later phase. And then as we start getting more involved, and as we start using it, everybody becomes aware of additional items, and then we have a phase 2. And it's always a phase development, and everybody always gets smarter. Capabilities change, requirements change. So it's an ongoing part of the process where we go through the entire process, do a discovery, do the development, do the review, and then go back, understand what went right, what went wrong, what else do we need, how else can we use this, how else can we leverage this within the organization, and then and what's changing that allows us to do that. Part of what we plan and part of what we find as we go along.
And it's really great to have a partnership like that, where someone's helping you see those possibilities and that potential, rather than just sort of checking a box saying, well, we did it, we're done. We didn't get to phase 2 because you said UPS and FedEx, so we're done with that, or whatever. I think that's the value that consultancy really provides. When you think about outcome-based projects, that one's got to be big. Like, wow, that we can just see how that one went. Are those your favorite kinds of projects? The ones where you can really see, or what? What's your sweet spot? What do you guys really love to work on when it comes to these integrations?
We just, it sounds hokey. We just love solving problems, and we think we have a positive impact with every one of our clients, different degrees. Our clients stay with us for a long time. This is, more of a commercial than the listeners probably want to hear, or the viewers want to hear. But they stay with us for a long time because we care about, we're invested in their success. So every one of these, they're different. Some are, more exciting than others, but we're happy when we can have an impact and make someone's life better, help them make more money, help them do their job better. It's and we're fortunate enough to do that a lot. I can give you another example at Pearson where I've mentioned this before, just through the collaborative process and having people, and just talking to people and understanding everything that they do, we're able to have tremendous financial benefit in the royalty area, and we had done a lot of work at Pearson, and because of our initial work in intellectual property, Pearson had a number of systems that had product data in it, different aspects of the product, different metadata about that book, and our core system for intellectual property management became the basis, became the system that was the data warehouse for all data, book related, or intellectual property related. So we grabbed information from various systems, and while we used our data to manage all the projects around intellectual property, other areas like order processing, also used our data, used our database to facilitate their work.
Do you find that there's a culture of curiosity sometimes when you get involved in these things, where the one project, everybody sees the potential and then they start oh, wait, could we also do this or could we also do that? And now you find yourself sort of really immersed in how data and integration and technology is all behaving inside of a company. And I bet that's really exciting when a company feels like, whoa, we didn't even realize. It's like flipping on the lights in a dark room.
Well, that's part of our process. I mean, yeah, 100%. But that's part of our process. Is we don't just want to speak to senior management. We want to speak to all levels. All key process owners within the entire organization, management, and the people that are using it. The people that are using it, they tell us what their frustrations are. You don't ask the question, what keeps you up at night? But you do ask, you do find out what they do, what they find difficult, what they think can be improved. And you take that, through experience and a different mindset, we're able to come up with ideas on, and it's collaboration. We'll bring something up and, they'll tell us, no, that doesn't work. It's not a one-way street. Everybody has input. And because of that, 1 and 1 will equal 3, almost every time.
Once you start asking questions, people tend to be fairly responsive in terms of things that bother them or things that they think they can improve upon. And once you start that conversation, it builds. And certainly after you've demonstrated a success somewhere, there's a little bit more confidence in that ability. Well, oh, since you were able to think of that kind of a solution, what do you think about this kind of problem? What do you think about this workflow? Or what's your thought about this process? And that may mean software, that just may mean process improvement, but you get the wheels turning and people start to think. And then all of a sudden these ideas come up and then, I would never even thought of asking you that question. And, comes a win as well. So that's certainly great.
And I'll give you a great example. It wasn't a big system, but a great success just through collaboration. We were engaged by the J. Peterman Company of Seinfeld fame to help them with a merchant processing problem. They had data, and for whatever reason, they wanted us to help them process that data. Well, that data was all encrypted, and that data, only went one direction to a particular vendor. I'm being a bit vague on this, but it only went in one direction, and we couldn't get that encrypted data. The software vendor is not going to give us the encryption key because that's all that you have all these PCI compliancy situations, and you don't want to give out the credit card information. Anyway, and we were ready to say, and during our discovery process, our initial discovery process, to make sure that we can in fact do the job and have a success, which we generally do for nothing. We're having a conversation. We were ready to punt on it. I couldn't come up with the data, any way to get that encrypted data or any data whatsoever. And in a casual conversation with one of the people in the department, not the manager of the department, that person said something. And I said, oh my God, that's the answer. I was ready to punt, casual conversation. They mentioned something. It was the key to doing it. We then did a proof of concept before we wrote any code whatsoever. We then did a manual proof of concept. It worked. And the code was developed probably in about 3 or 4 weeks, something like that, and they were amazed that it worked the first time. And it probably had a 3-month, it probably paid for itself in like 2 to 3 months.
That's great.
It was maybe not even that, but it had paid for itself very, very quickly. But that's just the process. It actually works. When people are talking and feel that they're being listened to, they'll tell you everything you need to know.
That's what I was going to say. Hi, is that it's a function of listening, and I don't think there's any greater way to start solving problems than to, not bring out your toolbox, but just listen, and then you start to realize, well, these are the tools that we need. Or in your case, as you just indicated, we didn't think we had the tools until we found out the problem was one that did require some tools we had. And I think that's a fantastic illustration of the power of that kind of consultancy. My hope here is that there are listeners that are intimidated or frustrated that are doing, all this weird back office, complicated, frustrated, banging their heads against the wall because they've been doing it this way forever and they don't know a better way. And in months, you could have this much better way if you had the right listener on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people, in any industry, and certainly in ours, that, while you're speaking, they're not listening, they're just reloading. And, they'll take an order, they'll do whatever you ask them to do, but it may not be best for you. And, we don't take that. That's not our philosophy. What you want to do is a germ or a kernel of what we'll probably wind up doing, but there's so much else going around that. But yeah, it's helped.
You got to keep yourself in the moment of listening. A lot of times you start listening to a problem, and you're like, oh, I already know the solution, so I can tune out and not hear the rest of it. And you don't realize you're missing key pieces of information. So you got to listen. You got to listen to the entire problem, and then you can come back with your thoughts on solutions. And as I said, you may not even have a solution. You may need to brainstorm. You may need to discuss it. You may need more conversations. But you start that process. Like I said, the wheels turn, things happen. And all of a sudden, these things pop out of nowhere as, oh, this is the solution. Or you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, I got it. Here's the answer. And I've done that before.
That's great stuff. Abe Unger, Hi Goldstoff from Intersoft Associates. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this one. Database integrations is where we started, but really I think it gets into the relationships and the problem solving and the listening and the things of human connection much more than data connection. And I think that's important. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for IsAware, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. IsAware is powered by Intersoft Associates, who believes the more you know about your IT, the better. Visit us at intersoftassociates.com and schedule your free consultation to talk about how custom software can help your business.